Zara, a successful woman, betrayed by the very people she loved and trusted. In one moment, everything she thought she knew about her family unravels. Can she take back control of her life, or will the storm of betrayal destroy everything? Follow Zara's cunning and calculated moves as she orchestrates the perfect revenge and uncovers the ultimate betrayal, an affair that changes everything. Stay with us to find out how Zara turns pain into power. The heavy rain fell in torrents, battering the window with relentless force, as if the heavens themselves were crying. The city outside seemed as dark and cold as the anger brewing inside Zara. She'd returned early, hoping to surprise her husband with a home-cooked meal, to make up for all the time she'd spent away, supporting her family, working herself to the bone, and building the empire they had today. She had sacrificed everything: her youth, her energy, her life. And what did she get in return? The betrayal of the very people she trusted the most. As Zara pulled her suitcase behind her, the weight of her exhaustion vanished, replaced by the warm thought of finally being home. She'd done it. The deal was closed. Her husband, Cassius, would finally see her as the woman who made it all happen. She had proven herself, not just as his wife, but as the boss she'd fought so hard to become. But as she walked into the parking garage, a chill ran down her spine. There, in her exclusive parking spot, one she'd paid $50,000 for, was a flashy, cherry-red Mustang. Her mind raced as she noticed the license plate. It was Ania's car, her sister-in-law. Why would she be here, in their private space, at this hour? Suspicion gnawed at her as she carried her suitcase toward the elevator. Why was Ania here, alone? Her brother-in-law, Tavon, was out working. Ania should have been at the office. So why was she parked here, in the middle of the day? She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, but she told herself it was just her tired mind playing tricks. When the elevator doors opened to the 18th floor, Zara's heart pounded in her chest. The air in their condo felt different. Something was off. The heavy scent of lavender that she always used was still there, but it was mixed with something unfamiliar. The unease that had settled in her stomach deepened. Then, she heard it. Moans, breathless, intimate, coming from their bedroom. Zara's breath caught in her throat. She froze. The sound was unmistakable. Her heart raced as she moved cautiously toward the bedroom door. She didn't need to see it to know what was happening. But her legs wouldn't stop moving. She opened the door just a crack, her eyes straining to see through the small sliver of light. There they were, Cassius, Ania, on their bed, together. In a tangled mess of passion, completely unaware of her presence. It felt like the world had stopped. Zara's heart sank to the pit of her stomach. The years of sacrifice, of devotion, of working tirelessly to make sure her family thrived, all of it meant nothing. Cassius's voice rang in her ears, cruel and callous, as he whispered to Ania. "You're incredible, baby. Unlike my old lady. She's a cold, money-making machine. You're everything I need." Zara's world crashed around her. The man she loved, the man she had supported through everything, was now with the one person she had always treated like family. Her sister-in-law, her trust, her marriage, her entire life, shattered in an instant. Her heart didn't just break. It fractured. But instead of giving in to the overwhelming urge to scream, to run at them, to tear them apart, Zara did something that would define her. She took out her phone, activated the video mode, and started recording. 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes of raw, brutal truth. She didn't need more than that. She backed away silently, grabbed her suitcase, and left the house, just as quietly as she came. Like a ghost. No tears. No hysterics. Just a cold, calculating calm. In the Uber ride to her best friend's house, Zara's body trembled uncontrollably. Her mind raced. She had all the evidence. She had all the ammunition. And now, it was time to fight back. She wasn't going to let them destroy her like this. She would make them pay. Michaela, her lawyer and confidant, was the only person Zara could turn to. When she showed her the video, Michaela's face twisted with bitterness. "Zara, listen to me closely. Don't make a scene. Don't do anything that'll let them off easy. You have to be calm. Make them destroy themselves. Let them hang themselves with their own lies and deceit." Zara nodded. Michaela was right. She couldn't let her emotions dictate her next move. Her pride, her dignity, her hard-earned success, it all mattered now more than ever. And she was going to make sure Cassius and Anaya felt every ounce of that pain. 2 days later, Zara returned home, her heart still cold but her mind sharp and focused. She had to play her part. She had to be the wife Cassius expected. And when she opened that door, this time, she did it on purpose, loudly. The surprise in his eyes when he saw her standing there, suitcase in hand, was all the satisfaction Zara needed. "I missed you so much, honey," she said, her voice dripping with sweetness that didn't reach her eyes. Cassius stammered. You came back early? Why didn't you call?" She smiled. It was a smile that didn't reach her heart. "The project finished early. I wanted to surprise you." She noticed the way his eyes darted nervously. His discomfort was obvious, and Zara loved it. That night, after an awkward dinner and a tense conversation, Zara continued to play the role of the unsuspecting wife. But inside, her mind was calculating. She was gathering more evidence, observing every little inconsistency, every lie. She was waiting for the perfect moment to strike. She had to make Cassius fear her. He needed to understand that Zara wasn't a woman to be underestimated. And the more he tried to act normal, the more he dug his own grave. Zara knew she was playing the long game, and she was willing to wait. Zara's plan is falling into place. She has all the evidence she needs to destroy her husband's life. But what happens when Tavon, her beloved brother, finds out the truth? What will happen when the lies unravel, and Zara has no choice but to watch as everything she's built collapses? Stay tuned as the storm of betrayal continues to rage, and Zara prepares to take the ultimate step in her battle for justice. You don't want to miss what happens next. The truth is coming to light, and the consequences will be more devastating than anyone could have ever imagined. Subscribe now, because this is just the beginning. Zara's revenge is about to change everything, and you'll want to see how it all unfolds. Zara stood frozen, her heart thundering in her chest, as the reality of what she had just witnessed crashed into her like a wave. There they were, her husband, the man she had built her life around, tangled up in the sheets with her sister-in-law, Anaya. It was a sight so sickening that it took everything in her not to scream, not to charge in and tear them apart. But something stopped her. A cold, calculating calm washed over her. As the sounds of their passion filled her ears, Zara pulled out her phone. She couldn't confront them yet. Not here. Not in the heat of the moment. She needed something more. Evidence. She set the video to record, her fingers steady, despite the turmoil threatening to tear her apart. With each second that passed, Zara felt the weight of the betrayal grow heavier. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about the years of sacrifice, the nights she spent building her empire, all for this man who was now in her sister-in-law's arms. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was a breach of everything she had ever believed in. She silently backed away from the door, her body moving without thought, as if on autopilot. She grabbed her suitcase and closed the door behind her with the softest click. No dramatics. No confrontation. She wasn't the hysterical wife or the angry woman throwing a tantrum. She was Zara, a woman who knew how to control her emotions, how to make calculated moves in business. And right now, she was playing a much bigger game than her husband or Anaya ever realized. Once outside the condo, Zara sank into the Uber that would take her to her best friend's place. Michaela, the only person who would understand the depth of her anger, the only one she could trust with this secret for now. As the car sped through the city, Zara's mind raced. She replayed the scene over and over in her head, but every time, it only made her feel more hollow. She had spent 10 years supporting her family, sacrificing herself for her marriage, only to be replaced by her sister-in-law. The woman she had loved like family. The woman she had taken in when she had nowhere to go. How could they do this to her? The tears came, but they were silent. The pain was too deep for sobs. Instead, there was a numbness that spread through her body, slowly turning her insides to ice. Her hands trembled as she took her phone out again. She had to make sure she had everything. Every detail. Every piece of proof. It wasn't just about getting revenge, it was about making sure they never got away with this. At Michaela's place. Michaela opened the door before Zara even had time to ring the bell. She knew her friend too well, and the look on Zara's face told her everything she needed to know. Zara was pale, her eyes bloodshot, and her usual composed demeanor was shattered. Without a word, Michaela pulled her inside, wrapped her arms around her, and led her to the couch. Zara, Michaela whispered, "What happened?" Zara handed her the phone. There was no need for explanation. Michaela hit play and watched the video, her expression shifting from concern to shock and then to cold fury. The kind of fury that only a woman scorned could understand. When the video ended, Michaela looked at Zara with a steely resolve. "Listen to me, Zara. You're not going to make a scene. Not now. Not yet." Zara shook her head, the tears now flowing freely. "But no." Michaela cut her off. "You're not going to give them the satisfaction of seeing you fall apart. You're going to do this on your terms. You're not just some woman scorned. You've built an empire. You're a boss. And bosses don't cry in front of the people who betray them. You're going to make them destroy themselves, Zara. Let them trip over their own lies. Let them hang themselves with their guilt." Zara listened, her mind still reeling from the shock, but Michaela's words grounded her. She had always been the rational one, the businesswoman who played the game with precision. This was no different. If anything, this was just another deal she had to win. She had the power, she just needed to wait for the right moment to strike. "How'd I do it?" Zara whispered, her voice shaking with both rage and fear. "You play the long game," Michaela replied firmly. "You keep calm. You keep it together. And when they least expect it, when they think they've won, you'll drop the bomb. And it will be their undoing." Zara left Michaela's place with a sense of resolve she hadn't felt in days. She knew what she had to do. But even as she walked back to her car, she couldn't help but feel the sting of betrayal again. This wasn't just a relationship that was broken. This was her entire world, crumbling around her. She had been blind, but not anymore. And now, she would show Cassius just how wrong he was to underestimate her. As she sat in the car, the image of Cassius and Anaya flashed in her mind. The sound of his voice, the way he had spoken about her, about Zara, as if she were just some cold, unfeeling woman. He had no idea what he was about to face. It would take time, but Zara was willing to wait. She would let them play their parts, let them think they were getting away with it. But when she was ready, when she had everything she needed, she would hit them where it hurt the most. The following days felt like a blur. Zara was all business during the day, but when night came, her mind would race with the weight of the plan she was executing. It was hard to sleep, but she couldn't let herself rest just yet. Not until the final piece of the puzzle was in place. And then, the phone rang. It was Tavon, her brother. The one person she never wanted to hurt, but who now had to face the ugly truth. "Zara, I just got a message, from an anonymous source. It says that Anaya and Cassius have been meeting in secret. Are they having an affair? Is this true?" Zara's heart stopped. She had known this moment was coming. Tavon had to find out sooner or later. But now, as her brother's voice trembled with disbelief and pain, she realized just how much the truth would cost them both. Stay tuned to see how Zara handles the devastating fallout. Will Tavon confront the people closest to him? And how will Zara protect her family while making sure the betrayers pay? Subscribe now and be part of this emotional roller coaster. Zara sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes staring blankly at the wall. The anger that had once consumed her was now a distant echo, replaced by something far more dangerous: control. She had taken the time she needed to recover, to let the storm of emotions pass, and now she was ready to act. The woman she had been was gone, the heartbroken wife, the betrayed partner. In her place stood a woman who understood the weight of patience and precision. Zara wasn't here for petty revenge. She was here for justice. And justice, as she'd learned in business, was always served cold, calculated, and with the utmost care. She straightened her back, took a deep breath, and walked to the bathroom mirror. She was a new woman. The red eyes, the swollen face from crying, it was all gone. She had masked the pain, covering it up with professional makeup. Now, it was time to play the part. Zara was going to be the loving wife, the supportive partner, the woman who would stop at nothing to make sure her husband paid for his sins. When Zara returned home that evening, she walked through the door with a smile on her face, her voice as sweet as it could be. "Honey, I'm home," she called out, her tone light, almost cheerful. Cassius looked up from the couch, his expression a mixture of surprise and relief. He hadn't expected her back so soon, but he quickly masked his anxiety with a smile. "Zara, you're back earlier than I thought. I didn't expect to see you until tomorrow." He stood up, walking over to take her suitcase, his eyes scanning her face for any signs of suspicion. But Zara was calm. She had mastered the art of hiding her emotions. She smiled, a smile that was all but sincere. "I wanted to surprise you. I missed you. Cassius hugged her tightly, too tightly, and Zara could feel the tension in his body. He was nervous. He was on edge, and that gave her a sense of power, the power she'd been missing for so long. As he pulled away, Zara caught a glimpse of the perfume on his shirt. It was Coco Mademoiselle, the same scent Anya always wore. The realization hit her like a slap in the face, but she kept it to herself. I'm going to make dinner. I've missed cooking for you, Zara said, her voice gentle as she brushed past him. She didn't need to say anything more. She didn't need to scream or confront him. She was playing the long game. As the days passed, Zara carefully crafted her strategy. Each time she looked at Cassius, she felt the weight of the betrayal, but she masked it with kindness and understanding. She wasn't just going to accuse him. She was going to make him admit it. She started with the small things, asking innocent questions that would make him squirm. One evening, as they sat down for dinner, she casually mentioned Ania's visit to the house. You know, I saw Ania's car in our parking spot the other day. It was around noon, but Tavon wasn't home. I thought she was at her office. Cassius stiffened, his hand frozen midair as he reached for his glass. Oh, yeah, I think she came by to drop something off for Tavon, he said quickly, too quickly. Zara kept her expression neutral, but inside, her heart raced. She let the silence hang in the air before responding, that's funny. The doorman told me he saw her car there all afternoon. Seems like she was parked for a while. Zara watched Cassius carefully. His face paled, and his eyes shifted away from hers. Guilt. Zara smiled to herself. The trap was set. Now, it was just a matter of time before he started to crack. Over the next few weeks, Zara's manipulation continued, subtle but precise. She let Cassius believe he was getting away with everything, while she gathered the pieces of evidence she would need to bring him down. Each conversation, each passing moment, was another chance for her to push him closer to the edge. One evening, after another tense dinner, Zara asked Cassius, by the way, I noticed you've been acting a little strange lately. I hope everything is okay at work. You seem really distracted. Is something going on? Cassius shifted uncomfortably, his fork scraping against his plate. No, everything's fine. Just a lot of stress lately, you know? Zara nodded sympathetically. I get it. I know work can be overwhelming. But you don't have to carry it all by yourself. If something's going on, you can always talk to me. The pause that followed was heavy. Zara could see the conflict in his eyes. He wanted to lie, but he was already deep in the web Zara had spun around him. Zara's patience began to pay off. She started documenting everything, every lie, every nervous reaction. She even began to plant more seeds of doubt, playing on Cassius's guilt. One night, after another failed attempt to cover his tracks, he finally cracked. Zara, he said, his voice barely a whisper, I know you've been noticing things. I don't know how to say this, but I've been seeing Ania. We've been involved for a while now. Zara's heart raced as his confession filled the air. Finally, the moment she had been waiting for had arrived. But she didn't show any sign of emotion. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she sat back, folding her hands in her lap. Is that all, Cassius? Is that all you have to say? She asked, her voice eerily calm. He was trembling now, his hands shaking as he tried to justify his actions. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry, Zara. I never meant for it to go this far. Zara leaned forward, her eyes locked on his. No, Cassius. You did mean for it to go this far. You thought you could have it all, didn't you? You thought you could have me, and you could have her, and nobody would ever find out. She stood up, her voice steady and firm. But you didn't count on me, did you? I'm not just some woman you can walk all over. I'm not the naive wife you thought I was. I'm the woman who built everything, and now, it's time for you to face the consequences. The confession hung in the air like a heavy storm cloud, but Zara wasn't done yet. She had the power. She had the evidence. And now, it was time to bring it all to light. But just as Zara was about to make the final move, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Tavon. Her brother. I'm coming over. I just found out about Ania. I'm going to confront her. I need your help. Zara froze. This was it. The moment she had feared. Her brother was walking into a storm of his own. How would he handle the truth? Would he be able to face the woman he loved and the man he trusted? Would he even survive it? Zara took a deep breath. The game was about to change. What happens when the lies unravel and the consequences come crashing down? Can Zara keep her brother from destroying himself, or will the truth break him? Subscribe now to witness the shocking turn of events. This is just the beginning. The real battle is only about to begin. The dinner table was set for an evening that Zara knew would change everything. The warm glow of the overhead chandelier reflected off the polished wood, but the comfort of home was far from Zara's mind. Instead, her gaze wandered to the one person who had destroyed her life, Anaya. It was a family dinner, one of those occasions where everyone gathered to break bread and pretend that everything was normal. Tavon, Zara's younger brother, had insisted on bringing his wife, Anaya, to celebrate what he called a new chapter. But Zara knew the truth. There was no new chapter. This was the beginning of the end. She could see the gleam of Anaya's necklace under the dim light, a large diamond shining with an unnatural glow. It was a gift from someone who had used her own money to buy it. Zara, ever so composed, leaned back in her chair, studying her sister-in-law. She knew this was the moment to strike, but she wasn't going to rush it. Instead, she casually picked up her glass of wine, her eyes flickering toward Tavon, who sat at the head of the table, smiling at his wife. "Anaya," Zara said, her voice smooth as velvet, "that's a beautiful necklace. Looks like it came from a high-end jeweler. Very classy. Did you just get it?" Anaya's face flushed. She instinctively reached for the necklace, but her fingers trembled slightly, betraying the discomfort she felt. "Oh, Zara, it's just a little something I picked up online." "Nothing special," she said, her voice a little too high-pitched to be convincing. Zara smiled, taking a small sip of wine. No, that's definitely not something from a random website. It's from one of those exclusive boutiques. It looks familiar. I remember seeing something just like it in a jewelry store the other day. Funny how a piece like that shows up here at the dinner table." Tavon, who had been chatting away, fell silent, his eyes darting between Zara and Anaya. Zara could see the nervousness in his expression, but he didn't yet know what was happening. He had no idea that the woman he adored was wearing the very necklace Zara had seen on Cassius's bank statement, the money that Cassius had secretly transferred to Anaya. The tension in the room thickened. Zara could feel the lies unraveling, but she wasn't done. This was just the beginning. Now it was time to plant the seeds of doubt. Dinner carried on, the conversation flowing more stiffly than it ever had before. Anaya kept glancing at Zara, her discomfort obvious. But Tavon was oblivious, still wrapped in his newfound joy. He didn't know the storm was coming. After the meal, Zara suggested they all take a walk in the garden. Tavon, eager to enjoy the evening, agreed, and the group slowly strolled outside, the cool night air brushing against their faces. As they walked, Zara's mind was racing with strategy. She couldn't let Tavon know everything at once. The shock would break him, and he wouldn't be able to handle it. She needed to ease him into the truth. "So, Tavon," Zara began casually, her tone soft but probing, "how's everything at work? I hear you've been really busy." Tavon nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, it's a lot of work, but I'm getting there. Anaya's been supportive too. She's been helping me with everything." Zara smiled, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, I'm sure she has been. She's so dedicated, always doing whatever she can for you." There it was. The subtle jab, the crack in Tavon's perception. Zara could see it, he was starting to question things. But she wasn't done yet. This was just one part of a much larger plan. "And how's she doing, really?" Zara asked, her voice still light, but there was an edge to it now. "I mean, she's been looking so glamorous lately. I hope she's not overdoing it. I wouldn't want her to stretch herself thin. You know, I saw her wearing that necklace. Quite the upgrade from her usual style." Tavon looked puzzled for a moment. He hadn't noticed anything unusual. "She's always been into fashion, you know that, Zara. What's wrong with a little treat here and there?" Zara sighed, her voice dropping an octave. "Oh, nothing's wrong. I just thought it was odd, that's all. The timing, you know? I remember that last month, Cassius mentioned the bonus had been cut. And yet, there she is, wearing something that looks like it costs a fortune. Funny how some things don't quite add up, huh?" The words hit Tavon like a slap to the face. He froze. Zara could see the doubt settling in his mind. This was the moment he had to decide whether to trust her or dismiss it. But Zara wasn't going to push him too hard. She knew better. "Maybe it's just me," Zara continued, her voice soft again. "But I just thought you should know, Tavon. I wouldn't want you to be blind to what's going on around you." She let the silence hang in the air, watching Tavon's mind churn. The seed had been planted. Zara's plan was slowly taking shape. Every word, every glance, every subtle hint was carefully calculated. She could feel the trap closing in on Cassius and Anaya, and now, Tavon was beginning to see the cracks in his perfect world. As the evening wore on, Zara made her exit. She could tell Tavon was lost in thought, his eyes distant as he processed the information she had dropped. But there was more to come, much more. This was just the beginning of a journey Zara had carefully orchestrated. The next day, Zara sat at her desk, sorting through some paperwork. Her mind, however, wasn't on the business at hand. She kept replaying Tavon's expression from last night. Had she done enough? Had she planted the seed deeply enough to make him confront the truth? The phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Tavon. "Zara, I need to talk to you," he said, his voice trembling. I don't know how to explain this, but I think you were right. I spoke to Anaya about the necklace. She got really defensive, like she was hiding something. I don't know what to think anymore." Zara's heart skipped a beat. This was it. Tavon was beginning to unravel. But what would he do next? Would he confront Anaya? Would he see the full truth? And then, as Zara sat in silence, waiting for Tavon's next words, she heard something that made her blood run cold. I went through her phone. "Zara, there's something I found. Something that doesn't make sense. She's been texting Cassius, and..." The line went dead. Tavon had discovered something else. What did Tavon find in Anaya's phone? How will Zara handle the next step in this web of lies? Subscribe now to see how the story unfolds, and don't miss out on the shocking truth that will change everything. The storm is far from over. The most shocking revelation is just around the corner. The days following Zara's subtle manipulations were tense. Cassius and Anaya were beginning to feel the walls close in on them. They had been careful, trying to maintain the facade of a perfect life, but Zara's careful orchestration was slowly unraveling the very fabric of their deceit. Every interaction with them became a high-stakes game, one that Zara had mastered. As Zara watched them struggle, she felt a sense of control she had never experienced before. She had gone from a betrayed wife to a woman with the power to dismantle everything. And now, it was time to make her move. It started with small mistakes. Cassius would flinch when Zara asked innocent questions. Anaya's smile faltered when Zara mentioned something that didn't add up. But the real cracks appeared when Zara dropped the bombshell about Anaya's pregnancy. It wasn't just a casual observation, it was the final piece of the puzzle that would break them both. One evening, as they sat in the living room, Zara leaned forward, her eyes locking onto Cassius. "Cassius," she said, her voice laced with calm authority, "I know about Anaya's pregnancy. I know it's not Tavon's baby." The silence that followed was deafening. Cassius stiffened, his eyes widening in panic. Anaya's breath caught in her throat, and for the first time, the masks they had worn so carefully began to slip. Cassius, usually the picture of confidence, suddenly looked like a man cornered. His hands trembled as he fumbled with the glass in his hand. "Zara, I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't," Zara interrupted, her voice cold and firm. "Don't try to justify it, Cassius. You've already shown me who you really are." She could see the guilt and fear washing over him. He was trying to hold on to control, but Zara could feel his grip slipping away with each word. Anaya's eyes darted to Cassius, her expression a mix of fear and guilt. But she didn't speak. She couldn't. Zara had already won. The truth was no longer hidden behind a facade of innocence. Zara knew it was time to bring Tavon into the equation. Her brother, innocent and naive, had been living a lie for far too long. She couldn't let him continue in the dark. He deserved to know. The night of the confrontation arrived. Tavon stood by the door, looking confused as Zara called him over. The tension in the air was suffocating, but Zara remained calm. She had prepared herself for this moment, she knew what had to happen next. "Tavon," Zara said, her voice steady but filled with an unspoken pain, "it's time you knew the truth." Tavon looked between her and the couple on the couch. He could sense something wasn't right, but he had no idea how deep the deception went. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice betraying a hint of anxiety. Zara walked up to him slowly, her gaze never leaving his. "Your wife," she began, her words cutting through the silence like a blade, "has been cheating on you with your brother-in-law." Tavon's face went pale, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. "What? No, Zara, this can't be true." But Zara was unwavering. She pulled out her phone, showing Tavon the screenshots of the conversations, the bank transfers, and the damning evidence of Cassius and Ania's betrayal. The truth was now undeniable. As Tavon read the messages, his world shattered. The man he trusted, the man he called family, had betrayed him in the worst possible way. The woman he had loved, the one he thought was his soulmate, had turned out to be just as guilty. The weight of the betrayal crushed him. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he didn't cry. His face turned stone cold, the shock too great to process. How could you do this to me? Tavon's voice cracked with emotion, but the anger was building. Cassius stood up, but there was no escape. Tavon, But Tavon cut him off, his words seething with fury. No, don't even try to explain. I trusted you. Ania, unable to handle the weight of the moment, collapsed onto the couch, her hands shaking as she tried to find words. Tavon, I'm sorry. I never meant for you to find out like this. Her apology meant nothing to Tavon. His eyes were wild with pain, the hurt so deep that it was almost palpable. He wasn't just hurt by the affair. He was devastated by the realization that the people he had loved most in the world had betrayed him in the worst way imaginable. Zara watched the scene unfold before her with a steady heart. She wasn't crying, she wasn't falling apart. She was standing tall, holding the pieces of their destruction in her hands. Tavon was broken, but Zara had prepared for this moment. The destruction of Cassius and Ania had to be total. The anger in Tavon's eyes was uncontrollable as he stood, shaking, his voice rising. You two are disgusting. You think you can just tear everything apart and walk away unscathed? You've taken everything from me, and now, you'll pay for it. Ania tried to stand up, but she was too weak to face the man she had wronged. Tavon, please. It wasn't like that. I never wanted to hurt you. Her voice trailed off in defeat. But Tavon wasn't listening anymore. His world had collapsed, and all that was left was anger. You both disgust me, he spat, his voice venomous. I was a fool to believe in you. As the confrontation grew more heated, Zara could see the toll it was taking on Tavon. But there was no going back now. The truth had come out. There was no hiding from the betrayal that had shattered their lives. The room was heavy with silence, only the sound of Tavon's labored breaths filling the air. His hands clenched into fists as he turned to Zara, his eyes wide with disbelief. Zara, he said, his voice low and dangerous, what happens now? What do I do? Zara's eyes met his, a flicker of something deep in her gaze. This wasn't over yet. The final blow had yet to come. Zara took a deep breath. Now, Tavon, now the real fight begins. This is where the true consequences of their actions unfold. And believe me, it will be worse than they can imagine. As Zara's words hung in the air, the room fell silent. The storm had only just begun. The truth is out, but the real battle is only beginning. What will happen next in the fallout of this explosive betrayal? Subscribe now to witness the final stage of Zara's master plan, as the consequences of their lies and deception unfold in the most unexpected ways. Zara had always been a woman of control. Her world, once shattered by betrayal, had now been meticulously rebuilt, piece by piece. With the evidence she had gathered, she held the power to destroy everything. Cassius's world was about to come crashing down. It wasn't just about exposing an affair, it was about taking back the life he had stolen from her. And with the help of her lawyer, Macaw, Zara executed her plan with precision. It was a quiet Thursday morning when Zara sat across from Macaw in her lawyer's office, the room filled with anticipation. The thick file that lay between them was full of the evidence Zara had gathered, messages, bank transactions, video footage, the perfect weapon to bring Cassius to his knees. Zara, Macaw said, looking over the documents, you've done your homework. This will destroy him. It's not just about the affair anymore. He's committed fraud, and with this, we can bring him down for good. Zara nodded, her heart hardening. The decision was made. Cassius's career, his reputation, and his marriage, everything would fall apart. The man who had once been her partner, her protector, was now the villain in his own story. When the lawsuit went public, the impact was immediate. Cassius was suspended from his position as the purchasing manager in the company he had worked for so many years. The once pristine image he had built for himself shattered, and within days, rumors of his infidelity and financial corruption spread through the corporate world like wildfire. But the legal consequences were just the beginning. Cassius's social standing was obliterated. Former friends turned their backs on him. Business partners, who once admired him, distanced themselves, unsure of the man they had known. The whispers of his betrayal spread quickly. But for Tavon, the fallout was different. He had believed in his family, trusted them with all his heart, and now he was forced to confront the painful truth. As Cassius's fall from grace made headlines, Tavon felt a sickening knot in his stomach. His world was collapsing. He had spent years looking up to Cassius, respecting him as a role model. And now? Tavon didn't know how to process the betrayal. He felt like he was suffocating under the weight of it all. Zara could see the devastation in her brother's eyes, and though the anger simmered beneath the surface, she knew he wasn't ready to face it head-on. Tavon hadn't yet come to terms with everything. The pain of losing trust in the people he loved most was still too raw for him to deal with. Despite the guilt eating away at him, Zara remained by his side. She knew he needed time to heal. He needed to rebuild, piece by piece, just like she had done. But more importantly, he needed to understand that it wasn't his fault. He wasn't to blame. It was Cassius and Anaya who had shattered his world, and it was time for him to realize that. Zara took Tavon out to dinner, trying to lighten the mood, but she knew that, beneath the surface, her brother was drowning in self-doubt. His laughter felt forced, and the sparkle in his eyes was gone. The betrayal had taken everything from him, and now Zara was the only one who could help him see a way forward. For Zara, the aftermath of everything was like a fog lifting. She had spent so long tied to her marriage, to the lies, and to the illusions that Cassius had painted. But now, with the dust settling, she could breathe again. She had been broken, but in the process of getting back at Cassius, she had found herself again. The woman she had become, strong, determined, and fearless, was a far cry from the fragile woman who had been deceived so many years ago. She had reclaimed her power, her dignity, and her life. As Zara stepped into her new office, a sense of pride swelled in her chest. The business she had built from scratch was thriving, and now, she could finally focus on what really mattered, herself. She wasn't the wife who had been betrayed anymore. She was Zara, the woman who had taken control of her own destiny. Her first day back at work after the divorce was empowering. Zara was no longer chained to the past. She met her colleagues with a new fire, no longer weighed down by the ghost of Cassius's betrayal. There was a lightness in her steps, and her focus was sharper than ever. With every new deal, every new opportunity, Zara proved that she was stronger than ever. The revenge she had executed, though cold and calculated, had given her the freedom to build something real for herself. And the weight she had carried for so long, the grief of being deceived and broken, began to lift. But just as things seemed to settle, the final twist hit Zara like a sucker punch. The one thing she hadn't anticipated, the last shred of betrayal, came crashing down on her. A message. Her phone buzzed. It was from an unknown number. Zara stared at the screen, her heart stopping for a second as she opened the text. Zara, you may have won the battle, but I still have one final card to play. You haven't seen the full extent of my power yet. The words hung there, taunting her. What did Cassius have left? Was there something even darker waiting for Zara in the shadows? Her fingers hovered over the phone screen. Had her victory been too soon? What was Cassius's final card? Will Zara's revenge come back to haunt her? Subscribe now to see what happens next. The battle may be over, but the war is far from finished. Zara stood in the hallway of the house she had once shared with Cassius. The walls, which had witnessed the laughter and whispers of a family, now felt cold and empty. The home that had once been a symbol of everything she had worked for was now nothing more than a graveyard of lies and betrayal. The time had come to say goodbye to the past and start over. Zara made the decision to sell the house. It wasn't just the property that needed to go, it was the memories, the weight of every broken promise, and the suffocating pain that still lingered in every room. She wanted to leave it all behind. The process of selling was quicker than she had expected. It felt almost cathartic, like peeling off an old layer of skin and shedding her past. With the proceeds from the sale, Zara bought a new home, a small, peaceful place far from the drama and betrayal that had once consumed her. The house was everything she needed. Light, airy, quiet. The sound of the birds in the morning was the only noise that interrupted her thoughts. The rooms were filled with nothing but promise, no ghosts of the past, just room to breathe and grow. Zara invited her family to join her in this new beginning. Tavon, who had spent so many sleepless nights struggling to make sense of his shattered world, now stood by her side as she prepared to create a new life. They both knew that it wouldn't be easy, but the seeds of healing had already been planted. Her new home wasn't just a place to live. It was a symbol of her strength and her determination to move forward. Zara wasn't just rebuilding a house, she was rebuilding herself. Tavon, once so full of innocence, had been forever changed by the events that had unfolded. He was no longer the carefree brother who had lived in the shadow of his older siblings' success. His eyes held a depth of understanding now, a wisdom born from pain. But he had become stronger for it. In Zara's new home, they began to heal. Tavon would often sit on the back porch with her, staring at the stars. In those quiet moments, they didn't need to say much. They understood each other. Tavon's transformation wasn't immediate, but it was profound. He no longer saw the world through the lens of naive trust. Instead, he had become someone who could navigate the complexities of life with his head held high. Zara knew her brother's journey would take time. She didn't push him, but she supported him in the ways only a sister could, by listening, by being there, by ensuring he knew he wasn't alone. Zara's journey, though difficult, had transformed her. Once a woman defined by her marriage, she was now a woman who defined herself. She had her own career now. She had her own dreams, and she no longer relied on anyone else to fulfill them. Her business flourished. The strength she had built through years of sacrifice was now being channeled into her own success. Zara knew that she didn't need a man to validate her existence. She had her own power. There were moments of weakness, of course. There were nights when she would lie awake, the quiet of her new home making the weight of her past more palpable. But Zara didn't crumble. She rose. She faced her fear and walked into the future with confidence. She looked at the woman she had become in the mirror, strong, independent, resilient. She was no longer the betrayed woman. She was Zara, the woman who had taken control of her life. And as she stood at the edge of her new future, she realized that her best days were ahead of her. Zara's empowerment wasn't just about the business deals she closed or the home she created. It was about her ability to trust herself again, to believe that she could rise from the ashes of her broken marriage and build something real, something true. Her future was hers to shape, and she was ready. But just as Zara was beginning to feel the weight of the past lift from her shoulders, a shadow loomed on the horizon. A familiar name appeared on her phone screen. It was from someone she had never expected to hear from again, someone who had been a part of the lies and betrayal. The message was brief but chilling. "Zara, we need to talk. There are things you don't know. Things that could change everything." Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be another attempt to break her? Another secret she hadn't uncovered? What more was there to discover? Zara's hands trembled as she read the message, her mind racing. Was this the calm before the storm? Zara thought she had finally closed the door on her past. But this message, could it unravel everything? Subscribe now to find out what happens next. The truth is never as simple as it seems. Zara sat alone in her new home, the silence of the room deafening in its stillness. Her hands trembled slightly as she watched the final touches of her plan unfold on the screen before her. The evidence, the damning messages, bank statements, the video, everything she had so carefully gathered over the months was now ready to be released. But this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. Her justice. Zara's heart felt steady as she prepared to unleash the storm. It was time to expose the truth to the world. No more hiding. No more lies. Cassius and Anaya had evaded the truth for too long, and now it was time for them to face the consequences. She first reached out to a few trusted friends, people who had once admired Cassius and Anaya, who would never believe the depth of their betrayal. Zara ensured they saw the video. She made sure the messages were read, the bank transfers scrutinized, the lies exposed. They had to know what had been hidden from them. The people closest to Cassius needed to see him for who he really was. Within hours, whispers turned into open conversations. Cassius's co-workers were the first to know, with some privately messaging Zara, admitting they had suspected something was off for years but had been too afraid to ask the questions. The shock, the disbelief, it spread like wildfire. One by one, his colleagues distanced themselves, cutting him off, muttering how they had always known there was something wrong. But the public spectacle Zara had orchestrated was only just beginning. She hadn't just shared the evidence with a few, it was time for the world to know. With a quiet exhale, Zara hit send. She uploaded the video. She sent out the links. The world saw everything. Zara didn't watch the chaos unfold. Instead, she sat back in her chair, her fingers interlaced in front of her, watching the rain fall outside her window. The vengeance wasn't in her actions now, it was in their reaction. She had delivered her justice. The rest was for them to process. Cassius was crumbling. As the video made its way through social media, his life spiraled out of control. Former friends, business partners, and even his closest allies turned their backs on him. His phone buzzed constantly, messages from creditors demanding payments he couldn't make. His career, once flourishing, had now been destroyed, with his company releasing a statement distancing themselves from him, claiming they would investigate the serious allegations brought forward. But what hurt him more than anything else was the whispers of his once perfect reputation evaporating into nothing. Every secret was now public. And then there was Anya. Her life, too, had begun to unravel. As soon as the truth surfaced, she was outcast by her social circles, her friends turning their backs, disgusted by the affair. Anya had always prided herself on being the charming, unassuming woman, the one everyone trusted. But now? Now, she was just another name in the tabloids, another woman caught in a scandal that would follow her forever. Zara watched it all unfold, her eyes calm, her expression unreadable. She felt no satisfaction in their downfall, not anymore. Her satisfaction came from something else, the realization that she was free. She didn't need their approval. She didn't need their validation. Zara had reclaimed her power. But the aftermath wasn't without its casualties. Zara thought she could simply walk away and forget about the damage. But Tavon, her brother, had been hit hardest of all. Tavon, though he had been made aware of the truth, still struggled to process everything. His heart ached, not just for the betrayal of his family but for the damage to his sense of self. How could he have been so blind? How could he have loved someone so deeply, only to realize that love had been a lie? The guilt weighed heavily on him. He was torn between his loyalty to Zara and his love for Anya. Zara watched him from the doorway of his room, silently sitting beside him on the bed. She wanted to reach out, to comfort him, but she knew the truth. He had to find his own way out of this darkness. He couldn't rely on her forever. He had to be strong on his own terms. Zara, Tavon said, breaking the silence as he finally met her gaze. His voice was hoarse, like he'd been choking on his words for days. What do I do now? Zara sighed, her hand resting on his shoulder. You do what you need to, Tavon. You heal. And you move forward. Her words, simple yet heavy, carried more weight than any amount of advice could. Tavon was at a crossroads, but for the first time in weeks, he saw a path forward. But just when it seemed like Zara could breathe easy, the phone buzzed again. This time, it was a different message, a phone call from an unknown number. Zara's heart skipped a beat. Her fingers hesitated over the screen before she pressed answer. Zara, the voice on the other end said, "You've won, but don't think this is over. There's more to the story, and you haven't heard the full truth." The voice was familiar. It was a voice Zara hadn't heard in months, but one that had haunted her thoughts for too long. Cassius. Zara thought the game was over, but now, there's a twist. What does Cassius know that could change everything? Subscribe now to see how Zara responds to the final challenge, and what happens when the truth becomes even more complicated. Zara stood at the window of her new home, watching the sunrise break through the horizon. The soft pinks and oranges that spread across the sky seemed to mirror the transformation she had gone through. It had been a long road, full of pain, betrayal, and heartbreak, but as the light bathed the world outside, Zara knew, she had reclaimed her power. The woman who stood in front of the window now was no longer the one who had walked through the door of betrayal months ago. That woman, the one lost in confusion and pain, was gone. Zara had shed the layers of victimhood, the cloak of helplessness, and emerged as a force of nature. She was empowered, unapologetically so. When she thought about how far she had come, Zara felt a quiet satisfaction deep within. She had rebuilt her life from the wreckage, not just physically but emotionally. She had discovered strength she didn't know she possessed. She had learned to trust herself again, to put her own needs first, to walk away from toxic situations and stand tall despite the storms. As she sipped her coffee, the weight of the past lifted more with every passing day. The world she had once clung to, with its lies and deceit, was no longer her world. She had stepped out of the shadows and into the sunlight. Zara had given herself the gift of forgiveness, not for Cassius or Anya, but for herself. She no longer needed to hold onto the bitterness or the rage. Zara had become someone who wasn't defined by her circumstances. She was a woman in full control of her destiny, owning her past and using it to fuel her future. Zara wasn't a victim anymore. She was a survivor. A woman who had fought for what was hers and won. She had walked through fire and come out stronger, more resilient. And now, she was free. She glanced at the stack of work in her inbox. Her career, once a tool to escape the pain, had now become something she was passionate about. Her empire was built on her terms. Zara had found a balance between her career and her personal life. She had learned to make space for both, to thrive in ways she never imagined before. As she looked around her new space, the peaceful, quiet home she had created for herself, Zara realized that the healing she had been seeking wasn't just about physical distance from the past, it was about emotional freedom. She had found peace within herself. The past was still there, a shadow she couldn't completely erase. But it no longer held her captive. Zara had taken back the reins of her life. She had learned that true strength wasn't about revenge, it was about moving forward, no matter the odds. Zara had come to understand that power didn't come from destroying others, it came from building herself up, brick by brick, until she was strong enough to stand on her own. She was no longer afraid of the future. She was ready to face whatever came next with her head held high, knowing that she was capable of handling anything that life threw at her. And just as she was reflecting on her new beginning, the phone buzzed on the counter. It was a message from Tavon. Her heart skipped a beat as she read it. Zara, you were right. I finally understand. I see it now. Everything you did, it was for me. For us. Thank you. A smile tugged at the corner of her lips as she typed back, you've always had it in you, Tavon. I just showed you the way. But as the smile faded, a new message popped up. It was from someone Zara had long since blocked. Cassius. The message was short but chilling. You'll regret this, Zara. I'll make sure of it. Zara's finger hovered over the screen. Her breath caught in her throat as she read the message again, the words sinking in. Was this a threat? Or was he simply trying to save face? The past had a way of clawing its way back, even when you thought you were free. She exhaled slowly, her eyes narrowing in quiet defiance. What would she do next?